today from Gordon Lockett. I do call for a motion to accept Councillor Lockett's apologies today. Councillor Reid, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Smith. All those in favour, please. That's carried. I invite councillors now to declare any conflicts of interest that they may have in relation to today's agenda. Councillor Gleeson.
Confidential item 6.1. Conflict there is on relation to banking, and as the chair of the local community bank, I won't participate in that.
Thank you, Councillor Gleeson. Any other conflicts to declare? Ms Farrell.
Thank you. Mayor, I have a conflict in relation to 2.9 of the agenda in regards to a perceived conflict related to a personal association.
That's noted. Thank you, Ms Farrell. Any other conflicts?
Thank you. Yes, Madam Mayor, I have a general conflict or a perceived conflict on item 2.7. Rivers Runners Development.
Thank you, Councillor Dukas.
Yeah.
And Mr Davis.
Item 2.4, the Hawkstyle Wind Farm as a previous author of the Hawkstyle panel.
Also noted. Thank you, Mr Davis. Nothing further? Quite a few conflicts today. Move now to the minutes of the ordinary council meeting back in August, the 29th of August. First of all, any discussion around the minutes? No. If there's not, I call for a mover to confirm that those minutes are a true and accurate record, please. Councillor Mead, seconded. Councillor Smith. We need further discussion in relation to the minutes. No. All those in favour, please. That's carried. We have no public participants registered for today's meeting. So we move straight on to item 2.1, the monthly financial performance report, and I'll call on our Director of Community, Corporate and Governance, Mr Ed Small, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. This report is the standard report for the month of August. I'll bring the attention to the council that I didn't include the variance report, which we normally include because of the fact that it was there were no variances reported in August, but I will make sure that we include it in future reports. There are no variances reported at this point, but if the rollover report that we consider later is included, it will obviously impact upon variances in future months. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Small. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Pesser.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. On page 26 on the income statement, on the second item there, the revenue in lieu of rates, considering that is 99% of budget year to date, so all of the wind farms, including Mortlake South, are they now at a rate of stage?
Through the Chair, Councillor, the Mortlake South is included in that 2.7 billion that's been invoiced.
Thank you. And the second one, Mayor, if I may, the line underneath that, user fees and fines, are 180,000 above budget. Could you just explain to us what that is?
Thank you. Through the Chair, Councillor, that's primarily to do with the additional aged care packages, home care packages we received. So we're recognising it might be a timing variance, but it wasn't expected to be received by this point in the year.
Thank you.
Any questions, Mr Small? No? Okay, so we do have a recommendation there, seeking a mover, please. We received a monthly financial performance report. Councillor Gleeson, seconded, please. Councillor Mead. Councillor Gleeson.
Thanks, Mayor. Probably say the same thing over and over and over, but it's important that we continue to monitor the finance on a monthly basis, particularly because this one looks at the first 2 months and it includes a bit of stuff that's overflown from the last one. So when we look at it, there's a lot of a bit of confusion, to say the least, about what we carry forward and where our bottom line is, etc., etc. But the questions that we ask, it gives us a pretty good understanding that we're where we should be. So I just have no problem in commending this report.
Thank you, Councillor Gleeson. Councillor Mead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Smith, for presenting this report, and Always interested to see where we're up to capital works versus budget, and 2 months in, we look forward to keeping track of that and ensure we're delivering on the projects for our ratepayers.
Councillor Mead, any other councillors would like to speak for or against this motion? I'll come back to you as the mover.
No,
Okay, put that to the vote. All those in favour, please. It's carried 6-0. Item 2.2, the annual financial performance report. Again, Mr. Small, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillors, this is a very important report. This is the report we want to include in the annual report, which goes to Council next month for which we're required to produce every year, which summarise the year's results. So the annual financial report and the annual performance statement have both been reviewed by our Audit and Risk Committee and have been reviewed by our external auditors, Vigo. So they are comfortable with what we're reporting here. They are suggesting that we give authorisation to make any minor changes should any arise. But I think this is a good result for the year, and this is reflected in the report, reflecting an operating result of $2.3 million surplus. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Small. Councillors, questions?
Just
Councillor Gleeson.
a question or maybe a comment to Ms. McNamara. Just on page 102, and only because I can't remember it, but you know, a few of our issues at VCAT, compared to previous years, there seems to be an anomaly there. Could you just talk about that?
Thank you, Councillor Gleeson, through Mayor. Thank you for the question. The percentage relates to one of our VCAT decisions that was not upheld at VCAT, and that means the matter was in relation to the quarry permit at Panmure, which was lodged at VCAT as a failure to grant application at VCAT. When that occurs, it's deemed to be a refusal by council. VCAT then heard the matter and issued a permit. So the way that it's reported reflects an overturn of a council decision.
Did we take that matter to VCAT, or was that taken out of our hands?
Through your Mayor, taken out of our hands in terms of the applicant for the quarry applied to VCAT to have it heard. Council in its indication to VCAT on whether it would have supported the application had it had the opportunity to decide, indicated support at that time.
Yeah.
Councillor Prinsett.
Thank you, Mayor. Page 98. Just asked to see the workforce turnover at the bottom of that page seems to be coming back to normal. Is that a good position to be in?
Through you, Mayor. Absolutely, Councillor Purcell. There's undoubtedly we had some challenges in the previous 12 months through a variety of reasons, but that seems to be trending now back the other way as we look forward to continuing to sort of boost that work in and around staff culture and where we're going as an organisation as hopefully a choice employer in the region.
Thank you. And another one, Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
On page 105, the asset renewal to up. The bottom of page 105. The percentage, what that to me is saying is that we're renewing our assets faster than they're depreciating, 145%, 134%. Just a question of whether that's the case and if that's a good position to be in, to either the CEO or to Mr. Small.
Thank you, Chair. Basically, this is a very good position. As you can see, we've over the last 4 years, we've constantly done that, and we're projecting to do the same next year as well. So replacing our assets faster than the depreciation.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Councillor Mead.
Thanks, Mayor. So, Mr. Small, member of the public reading through this, you can see a $2.4 million operating surplus. What's the plan moving forward?
The plan moving forward is to recognise the impact of any rollovers from the previous financial year and what we're comfortable to do with that. And then also we need to see what other variances there are. So we need to ascertain what our adjusted financial position was, because we would have prepared this budget back in May, and this is 4 months later. So it's always an evolving story. So this puts us in a good position going forward, but we need to get the next iteration. Thank you.
Councillor Gleeson.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a comment in relation to this report. From me, we're sitting on that committee. Each of the officers has to go through their particular sections and explain, et cetera, but also the external scrutiny that this has to go through. For me personally, it gives me great comfort. And so, the meeting recently with our auditors, et cetera, very, very thorough and tick. So I know we can always improve and there'll be little places we can, but gave me great confidence in that meeting.
Councillor Gleeson. If there are no further questions, councillors, we do have a recommendation before us that we approve in principle the annual financial report and that we authorise the 2 councillors who currently sit on that audit risk committee to certify the annual financial report and performance statement. Is anyone happy to move? Councillor Mead, thank you. Seconded. Councillor Purcell. Councillor Mead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Echoing the comments here from Councillor Gleeson, it also gives confidence that those reports have been through auditors, and the Audit Risk Committee has been recommended to take at this point. I'm happy to follow through with that. So I commend the report. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Mead. Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Certainly agree with all those comments. The annual financial reports and statements are important. Knowing the thoroughness of the audit committee and also the work the councillors and the council staff have done to make certain that the rigour is put into these reports, and it's a comforting position that we are in, and it's actually great to be able to second this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Purcell. Would any other councillors like to speak for or against the motion before us? If not, I'll return to you as the mover, Councillor Mead.
Thanks, Mayor. It is a great opportunity to have a good review of how last year went, and it's there for all to see. So fully transparent and ended up being a good result. So thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll put that to the vote now. All those in favour? Is carried 6-0. Item 2.3, provisional financial result. The third of our big financial reports today. Mr. Small, if you could introduce, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, this is a report in 2 parts. Basically, in any financial year, you draw a line in the sand, particularly a point in time, and you see where you're up to with progress against projects that are underway at the time. So we had in 22-23 a number of authorised projects which were still underway at the end of the financial year, 30th of June. And this report is requesting that council consider rolling those projects, rolling the authorisation for those projects and their associated budgets through into the next financial year. And secondly, it's also requesting our councils then have a mini budget presented looking at the wash up of all these changes that are going to go through in this 23-24 budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Small. Questions from councillors?
Just
Councillor Gleeson.
some clarification, Mr. Small. So we worked pretty extensively in the preparation of this year's budget, and we're pretty happy with what we've got, or what our targets were, I guess. I mean, and so now we're moving things, and we're putting work on top of that.
That's good.
And so, could you just using that then the importance of the mini budget?
Thank you, Councillor. Basically, the mini budget makes us look afresh at what our total commitment is the coming financial year. Do we have the capacity and the resources to enable us to deliver all this work in the next 12 months? And if we do, well and good, but there might be areas that we might need to reproject or reschedule. So we have to have a look at that more closely, and we intend to do that through the November council meeting.
And that will come to open council meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Gleeson.
Again, just in light of that, then, if we're in a position where we sort of thought perhaps we can't get some jobs completed, would money then be directed to other projects that we could find other people to do, you know, contract out perhaps?
Mr Davis.
Through you, Mayor. It's something we would look at once we've got a better position of where we are in a point in time come October. It could be a contracting option. It could also be a hold option. We'll have that discussion once we've got the extent of it.
Anything else from councillors? If not, we do have a recommendation here, an officer recommendation, that we approve the variations listed here and that we note that a mini budget is proposed to be presented to the November Ordinary Council meeting. Seeking a mover, please. Councillor Gleeson, seconded. Councillor Mead, thank you. Councillor Gleeson.
Thanks, Mayor. I guess I'll probably just in a funny old way express my concerns that, you know, we came up with what we thought was a pretty good myriad of projects that we want to get completed. And each year we seem to add on top of them again for the ones we don't get completed. But, you know, that's a challenge for staff. I understand all that. So I'm more, you know, happy with the point 2, that we are given the opportunity to redirect if needed. So I'm happy with the report. I'm happy to support it.
Thanks, Councillor Gleeson. Councillor Mead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, agree that once we have got a full understanding of the wash up from previous financial year, which is obviously monitored closely month by month at this council meeting, at council meetings like this throughout the year. Once we have a review, we can make any suggested changes or have a discussion about where we might go to with some of those funds for the mini budget in November. So I think it's prudent and it's good practice to do so.
Great. Any other councillors wanting to speak for or against this motion? No, I'll come back to you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
thank you.
Councillor Dukas.
I have one question. Really small. In this comprehensive statement on page 109, I don't see anything about where the rates, what's the word I'm thinking of? Supplementary rates. Is that involved in the whole rates and charges figure?
That's correct, councillor. It's included in that figure.
Because the variation is only $80 there, and I thought that we'd have a lot more.
Councillor, it's $80,000 in this case, but that would be included in the result for the year. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think we were a bit beyond question time, but but that's okay.
I apologise.
No, we'll allow that. Okay, Councillor Gleeson, you have a chance to sum up.
I can if will if I
Would you
can.
like to?
And just sort of bring the 3 reports together, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, all to do with our finances. So all I want to say is to Mr. Stanley's team, particularly Craig Roston, you know, enormous amount of work that goes into it. And, you know, as Councillor Mead said, each month we look at this, we try and make sure, or we do our best to ensure that the council is in a sound position. And it's because of the work that you and your team do that we have confidence. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gleeson. I'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour? That is carried 6-0. Thank you, Mr. Small. We move now to item 2.4, Hawkesdale Wind Farm Community Engagement Committee recommendation to Council. And I'll note Mr. Davis, our CEO, has declared a conflict in this item and will leave the meeting. And we'll call on our Director of Environment, Economy and Place, Ms. Jodie McNamara, to introduce this, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, this report presents to Council a recommendation made by the Hawkesdale Wind Farm Community Engagement Committee regarding BAT and Abbey Corner surveys for the Hawkesdale Wind Farm, and recommends that Council write to the Minister for Planning outlining the need for additional BAT and Abbey Corner surveys for the Hawkesdale Wind Farm. I have the recommendation before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McNamara. Questions, councillors? Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just on the discussion on page 118, it says the wind farm's under construction, so another pre-construction BAT and Abbey Fauna survey cannot be done. So we're actually asking the Minister to we're asking the minister to do something that can't be done.
Through you, Mayor, I have Ms Granger here also to answer, but if I can attempt the first answer, because it's under construction, it won't be pre-construction in terms of the survey, but possibly could be a post-construction or during construction survey.
Thank you. Ms Granger, is there anything? I agree with that, Mark. Okay. Anything further? Councillor Preston?
Yeah, on the timeline, page 117. 2023, GPG advised that the draft revised bat and avifauna management plan have been submitted to the minister for assessment. So we're asking for what surveys to be redone rather than the plan itself.
You, Mayor? Is correct.
And my final one,
Yep.
No, no, no.
Go
Okay.
ahead, Councillor
my
Preston.
final one, Mayor. Is there any reason to believe that there would be any change in the surveys? Is there any evidence that the one that was done in 2007 is there any reason to believe that would be any different now to then?
Mayor, I might refer to Ms Granger.
Ms Granger, please.
In the panel report in 2007, that was highlighted as an area that could be improved by doing further surveys. We have seen seasonal changes. We've seen a mix of wet and dry seasons. Usually the surveys done pre-construction will only cover one season. There is additional survey done that may happen in different seasonal variation and give us different results.
Question?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead. Yep, go ahead, Councillor. Please. Go ahead.
Ms Granger, so in 2017, panel recommended was that the management plan be revised. So was that done?
No, that wasn't done. And one of the problems with the planning system when we're dealing with amending permits is where you can only amend a permit or the management plans that are requested to be amended by the applicant. So the panel can turn its mind to other issues, but can't direct further work be done because those conditions weren't subject to the amendment request.
So even though the recommendations were that you should do further work in this regard, you don't have to.
That's correct.
Okay, so just to follow up then, the plan that's been submitted in 2023, is that still waiting for assessment?
That is being assessed by DECA, Barwon Southwest.
So the plan, the original permit, the report is the original 2008.
That they're using for the statistics of how birds and bats use the site. Yes, it's the original report, but the BAM plan that's being done, which will require updated monitoring once it starts operational, hopefully is reflecting the learnings we've had since this permit was issued many years ago.
Councillor Mead.
Thanks, Mayor. Ms Granger, when or if is the next report due to be done or survey?
So at the moment, what we're waiting on is approval of the BAM plan. BAM plan will then set up the monitoring that is required when the wind farm becomes operational. And it will be it won't require any new surveys to be done, but it will be using the existing surveys as the benchmark.
Councillor Gleeson.
So a follow on to Councillor Mead's. So the report in 2008 will be the benchmark of any reporting that they do as far as the bat and avifauna management plan.
What the 2008 report does is assess how birds and bats use the site and what numbers frequented the site. The monitoring that they're going to have to do will be looking at what's currently using the site, what has been found to have hit a turbine or carcass searches, and hopefully will show if there is any difference in utilisation because they're doing current monitoring.
Well, on Councillor Gleeson.
Plenty. I'll just leave it for a minute.
Okay. Other questions? Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. While Councillor Gleeson's thinking of his questions, the issue with the bats and the other, if we look at the bat and everything surveys from other wind farms, Willatook was one, and must admit I refreshed myself on a number of them yesterday. The area covered by some of these and exclusion zones are quite significant. Is there any chance that some of those? No, I'll rephrase that question. Would cropping do as much damage to bats and avifauna as the wind farm would?
I don't have the expertise to answer that question.
Right. Is the issue, if I could, so is the issue that the wind farm, that they run into the wind turbines? Is that the issue, or is it that you're disturbing the habitat?
So it's both. It's looking at what disturbance has the wind farm had on the habitat and what are the movement patterns, what carcass searches are done, and what is found. I think we need to have some confidence that any BAM plan approved for this project will take into regard recent findings that we've had for wind farms that operate. So looking at when there's curtailment, a strategy using dogs rather than humans to do the carcass searches. So while there's no up-to-date bird and bat statistics, I think what the BAM plan will, when it gets approved, will do is probably lift the standard from the BAM plan that was approved in 2012.
Right.
So we should get more vital information on the impact of the wind farm, even though it'll be operational, on what impact it has on significant species, and be in a position to work with the department and the wind farm operator to protect species by using measures that we haven't seen before, like curtailment.
Councillor Gleeson.
So if we're accepting of the 2008 report as our basis, and just supposing that it's only identified one bronga in that area in that study, and at the end of the first year of operation there's 12 casualty deaths, surely we need to be sort of a bit more up to date than that.
I think we would work really closely with DECA on those issues because they're the ones with the expertise in bird and bat management. But definitely the council will have a role to play in administering that power.
So just so that I'm clear, our role to play is based on their 2008 report. So if anything that's contradicts that or is way above that, well, that shouldn't matter to us. We can only measure on what we've got.
Yeah, what we will have is reports submitted year 1, year 2, maybe up to year 5 of the bird and bat monitoring that needs to be done in accordance with the BAM plan. So we move from construction to operation and monitoring phases.
Councillor Purcell.
Yeah. Could you refresh my memory? What is included in avifauna?
So birds and bats.
Birds and bats. All species, legless lizards, and then they are included in the reports?
Not necessarily the lizards.
Was in Willatook.
Yeah, so Willatook's at a different stage where they're actually doing biodiversity reports.
Yes.
In this case, we've got a permit issued that may have looked at those issues, but from a monitoring perspective, they're asked to do a bird and avifauna, which is bird and bats management plan.
Okay.
Councillor Gleeson.
The clarification, thanks, just to Director McNamara. So the CEC, and obviously they take it very seriously and put a lot of work into this. If we were to change the recommendation that need for additional, we want a new, they're asking for a new report to be done, an up-to-date report that's relevant to now, not 15 years ago. Can we do that?
Through you, Mayor, thank you, Councillor Gleeson. We are able to request that occur, and that's the request in front of us.
Well, the request in front of us is regarding the need for additional surveys. So I'm suggesting a new survey, if it was appropriate.
Okay, further questions? Oh, Ms McNamara or Ms Granger?
Ultimately, the Minister for Planning is the decision maker. So that's why we can only request on behalf of the Hawkesdale CEC that additional work be done. We can't ask the company directly to do it because we're not the decision maker.
Okay.
Final questions from councillors? There being none, we do have a recommendation that council write to the Minister for Planning on behalf of the Hawkesdale Wind Farm Community Engagement Committee, requesting an additional bat and avifauna survey for the Hawkesdale Wind Farm. Seeking a mover, please.
Just an alternative.
Go ahead.
Just take it regarding the need for additional, to ask for a new and up-to-date survey.
So you're moving an alternate motion that essentially says regarding the need for a new.
Like the planning minister asking for a new and up-to-date bat and avifauna survey.
Thank you. So moved. Seconder, please. Councillor Mead. Thank you. Councillor Gleeson.
One of the things about the Hawkesdale CEC is they've got skin in the game. They took this company on because, you know, there was a lot of angst in the community about the development. Sitting on their CEC committee, there's been a lot of discussion about a report that they only got recently, which is 15 years old. And so at the request of the committee, I've provided you a little bit of information, as I said I would. The reality is that the information before us isn't up to date. And so all they're asking as a community group is for us to write to the minister saying we want an up-to-date report. The report that we've got, or they've been presented, has only become public this year. And so they've been asked to update it in 2017. We don't know if they did. In 2023, the report that they've presented is still with the minister. And so the local people haven't had any opportunity to see that. Now, I would have thought that if the report said you should do this, then the company should do it. And we don't know that they did do it. As a matter of fact, they don't have to do it. The community are asking that it be, they understand that the project has commenced, understand that. So it's not a pre-commencement they're asking for. They're asking for now a new bat and avifauna report. Within the report that was presented, there were so many ambiguities. There was a lot of anomalies in distances ranging from 10 kilometres to 3.2 kilometres, ranging from the wind farm boundary. So adjoining the wind farm is a wetlands which is in behind the golf course, and there's no real reference to that. If we look at the maps in the existing report that's before that we've been given, and so that's caused the community a lot of concern. And the data presented is also quite baffling. That over a period of 3 days or 2 days with a walk around, there was one Brolga sighting. So back in 2008, it could have been the driest season we've ever had. This year, there's Brolgas and documentation of 3 or 4 within the precinct of the of the wind farm, and so we've got documentation of that. I know that this could be renewed breeding because we've had exceptional wet weather. So why aren't we looking at what's dry and what's wet, and why aren't we taking all these things into consideration? It's a real frustration to the committee that they have actually 6 really active community members, that the report that they've got before them is 15 years old and they don't think that it's good enough. And I just ask that on behalf of them that we should write a letter to the minister and say, we can't rely on the documentation that we've got from 2008 because it's not accurate and it's not up to date. And we should ask, because we're the ones that have to make decisions on it and look after it when the reports come back. It seems to me that we're starting on a pretty low base if we agree that in 2008 there was one Brolga sighting. Wetlands right adjacent to the property weren't considered. I think the community group have some rights to be a little bit concerned about that, and the least we could do is support them. So
Thank you, councillor Gleeson. Councillor Mead, seconder.
Oh, so thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak for or against? Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll be voting against this motion. It's caused me a lot of thought. And as I said, I went back and read all of the previous reports. I very much respect the Community Engagement Committee, in particular, all of them, but particularly the Textile one, and I've been heavily involved with them. So I respect their position, and there's no doubt where that position is. My concern, though, is, as I said, reading all these reports, I really have a concern that we will be making a rod for our own back and not being able to farm some of these areas. If you have and I said Willatook is the most recent one that's been done, and if we're saying that the wind farm's going to be an issue for the bat and avifauna, I can assure you that agriculture is going to be more of an issue. If we're going to crop and graze these areas, that's going to cause more damage to the bat and the avifauna than the wind farm will. And I think we'll be creating a rod for our own back if we start writing to the minister saying, do more than the permit requires. It's already in the permit, what's required. We're not, we don't have a party to that. It's the state government who do. And I just think we will be causing our farmers some real damage if we start to put our head into some of these things. And by doing this, we appear like we actually want that to happen. Are we writing to the minister? And maybe we are wanting, or maybe there are some who want it to happen. But from my point of view, I just think from our farmers' point of view, we need to protect them. And doing some of this, that the cropping and grazing are going to cause more damage to the wind farm.
Thank you, councillor Purcell. Any other councillors wanting to speak for or
Yeah,
against?
thank you,
Councillor Dukas?
Madam Mayor, could you read out the motion or the change to the motion?
It is on behalf of the Hawkesdale Wind Farm Community Engagement Committee Council, write to the Minister for Planning, requesting a new bat and avifauna survey for the Hawkesdale Wind Farm. Is that correct, councillor Gleeson? That's
enough, thank you.
So reading through the notes, it's now in construction phase. So if you look at the request from on page 118, it says that surveys were completed in 2010. Hawkesdale Community Engagement Committee requests Council Right, the Minister requests the Minister direct to undertake further bat study prior to the wind farm becoming operational. But the motion before us doesn't say that.
No.
So that survey could be done once it becomes operational. So if it happens 6 months after operational, there'll be nothing left. If there's anything there, it'll be sliced to bits. So the survey will be a great result because there's nothing to report. They should not, the alternate recommendation, have something in it like the request from the committee prior to it becoming operational, so it can do the surveys, can do them now while it's being built and while they're testing the turbines. Because if it happens after it's up and going, then it's, I think, too little too late. So it's up to the movers and seconders to sort of clarify, I think.
councillor Gleeson.
Happy to include make that an addition to the motion prior to commencement of operation.
Prior to commencement of operation. Councillor Mead,
Yes.
you're happy with that amendment?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, because that can be done prior to it operating and carry on post-operation.
So just to be clear, we have an amended motion before us, and that's captured, I think, by our team. Any councillors wanting to speak for or against? Councillor Smith?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm speaking in favour of the amended motion. I hear my colleague Councillor Purcell said, but basically, I'm going back, we set up the CECs to represent the community. This is a request coming from the community. So I think it's only fair as we as a council respect the request from the Hawkesdale CEC. And I feel the amended motion greatly differ from the request from the Hawkesdale CEC. So I'm happy to be in favour of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Smith.
Just quickly, Madam Mayor, yeah, look, I'll support the motion as well, and I'm just disappointed that after all these planning applications that have come before the minister, extending the time, that no one in Deakin or in the minister's office was smart enough to ask for an updated plan. Sure, if it was a high-rise building, they'd ask for something different after 13 years, but that being the case, nothing surprises me, does it?
Thanks to councillor
Government.
Councillor Mead, you reserved your right.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, yep, happy to support the motion and take on board the volunteers' views from the Community Engagement Committee of Hawkesdale and forward on their concerns.
Thank you, councillor Mead. And back to you as the mover, councillor Gleeson, first.
Thanks, Mayor. Having been involved in several CECs over the last 3 years, having been privy to some bat and abbey reports from other CECs, I remember using the term, you wouldn't want to read this report to your kid because it's like a scene from a horror movie. All I want to know is what the accurate data is now. I'm not really worried about 2008, and I'm speaking on behalf of the CEC as chair. So this isn't me, but I want to know, as the community want to know, what's the situation now? We want an up-to-date report to say, this is your starting point, this is more accurate, and that's really all they're asking for. So that when we have to look at the 12-month, the first year report, the second year report, we can compare, I'll say apples to apples, but that's probably not right. But because of the anomalies and ambiguities and concerns raised from the original report, I think it's only fair that we won't let it ask. I mean, we might think we know the outcome, but it's not going to hurt us to ask.
Thanks, councillor Gleeson. I'll now put that to the vote. All those in favour, please. In favour is councillor Smith, councillor Mead, councillor Foster, councillor Gleeson and councillor Dukas. Against, councillor Purcell. Thank you. Item 2.5, Wind Farm Community Engagement Committee's Community Representative Nominations. Ms McNamara, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, this report presents one nomination that we have received for one of the community representative vacancies, which relates to the Mortlake South Wind Farm Community Engagement Committee, and acknowledges that there are vacancies remaining for Ryan Corner and Dundonald Wind Farms due to no nominations having been received. The recommendation includes leaving the nomination process open for any future applications if they arise.
Councillors, questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The no submissions for Ryan's Corner and Dundonald, does that put the quorum in jeopardy?
Thank you, Mayor.
Ms Granger.
For Dundonald, definitely not, because it's just one vacancy. I'm pretty sure for Ryan Corner, as long as we get the 3 existing tenants there, we're fine. We would have a quorum. But because that project is in construction phase, it would be great to get more members around the table.
Just
Councillor Gleeson.
point of clarification there too. So 3 members as a quorum, is that 3 community members or is it?
Three community members. A quorum is 3 community members, a council representative and a company representative.
Further questions? Not, we have got an officer recommendation before us, and I'm seeking a mover for that, please. Councillor Smith, thank you. Seconded. Councillor Mead. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, I'd just like to thank the applicant for putting in the application for the Mortlake South Wind Farm. The Mortlake South Wind Farm is now fully operational. but just disappointing that we didn't receive nominations for both Ryan Corner and Dundonald. But I'd also like to acknowledge the outgoing members of the CECs for the work they've put in to representing their communities, and the positions are still available for Ryan Corner and Dundonald. So these positions were advertised in the Woonable Standard, and local residents within 5 kilometres were letterbox dropped to notify them. So if people know of any people that within those communities willing to put their hand up and go on to the CECs, I think they will be making a great contribution to these. So I have pleasure in moving the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Mayor. Very well said by Councillor Smith. Just to add that as the current chair of the Mortlake South CEC, I look forward to welcoming the new member on board. Thank her for her application and will give us a full contingent.
Thank you. Any councillors wanting to speak for or against? Councillor Dukas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Clarification. Councillor Smith said it was advertised locally and a letter dropped 5 kilometres. If somebody 10 kilometres away nominated, would they be accepted? Or do they have to be within 5?
Ms McNamara.
We would accept any nomination. And again, we put the nominations to council for decision, where you look at issues about how close they live to the project, what community group involvement they have. So open to any Moyna resident.
Just at the 5 kilometre letter drop. Seemed a bit strange when someone from 10 k's out from nominated.
Mr Davis.
Through you, Mayor, and also that they're not on another CEC. Can't be on more than one.
So no other councillors wanting to speak for or against? I'll come back to you as the mover, Councillor Smith.
Yes, nothing further to add. Thanks,
Put
Mayor.
that to the vote. All those in favour, please. That's carried 6-0. Item 2.6, dissolve Salt Creek Wind Farm, CEC. Ms McNamara, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, this report acknowledges that the Salt Creek Wind Farm CEC has fulfilled its purpose now, and in accordance with the CEC Charter for Council, it now recommends that it be dissolved.
Any questions from Ms McNamara? No? Okay, we do have an officer recommendation that we dissolve this CEC. Do we have a mover, please? Councillor Gleeson, Councillor Smith. Councillor Gleeson.
That's just what Councillor Smith go. The importance of these is certainly pre-construction, dissemination of information, etc. The wind farm's been in operation for several years, and just duly noting that this is a request of the CEC under their general business in the minutes, 9.1 to dissolve. So I think we should just acknowledge their contribution firstly, which did so well. Now, we ask a lot of community. We know that most great things are built on the back of community and volunteers. So this committee has done a great job for their community, and I thank them, and I'm happy to support what they wind up.
Thank you, Councillor Gleeson. Councillor Smith, you know this particular CEC fairly intimately.
Exactly, Mayor. Thank you. Look, I've seen this CEC go from open paddocks to a fully operational wind farm, so I've been on the journey all the way through. But what Councillor Gleeson said, again, thank the community members on it. They always did it in a very respectful and productive manner, which I think is always good when you're a member of these committees and there's often things involved. But it's been, an interesting journey, and again, just thank everybody for it. And unfortunately, it has come to its end of its life. We met several times in conjunction with the Dundonald Wind Farm, which saved people coming out to separate meetings. So it's fulfilled its purpose and will move on. Hopefully there are no other great concerns, but just thanking people again, members of the community and council officers, for their input into the Salt Creek Wind Farm.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Other councillors wanting to speak to this for or against? vote. I'll come back to you as the mover, councillor Gleeson.
No, no, please.
Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour, please. Carried 6-0. Item 2.7, moving away from youth funds and on to planning scheme amendment C75 Rivers Run. I'll ask our Director of Environment, Economy and Places, please introduce this, and Councillor Dukas has declared a conflict and will leave the meeting. Thank you, Ms McNamara.
Thank you, Magna. Councillors, this report considers the amended documents for planning scheme amendment C75 Rivers Run Estate, which are referred to as day one documents. We are putting this in front of councillors prior to the panel hearing commencing next week. Since the matter was last presented to councillors, changes to the documents have been made and are now known as day one documents, and it is appropriate that councillors consider the documents prior to the panel hearing commencing. Other recommendations?
Thank you, Ms McNamara. We have spent many months on this particular item. Are there questions today from councillors? Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms McNamara, once it goes to council, panel, sorry, and they put forward their suggestions or recommendations or deliver their report, what happens then? What's council involvement there?
Thank you, Councillor Mead. The next step following the receipt of the panel report, following the panel hearing, is for councillors to consider that panel report and are able to make a decision at the time whether to accept the panel report. That will be the next step in the process following the hearing.
Councillor Pearson.
Probably just to follow on from that, if I could, Mayor. Council consider it, and what are the options for council at that stage?
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Purcell. The options at that point in time are to adopt the panel report and refer it to the Minister for approval, or to not adopt the panel report, and that would mean that the amendment would most likely not proceed.
Councillor Gleeson.
Thanks, Ms. Given that this has been going for a long time, and I think it's 89 submissions received in relation to the application, they've been heard at a panel already. You mentioned there's been going into day one, so there's been some concessions. Do the concessions address a lot of those concerns?
No, can I just interrupt there? Councillor Gleeson, clarification that the panel hasn't convened yet, is that correct?
Sorry. We've looked at all the submissions and we've made a report or a submission with all of those included, is that right?
Through you, Mayor, if I can, thank you, Councillor Gleeson. You are probably referring to Amendment C69, which was heard late last year, which we did receive a panel report for. Amendment C69 did deal with similar issues as posed in C75. However, we will be going to a panel hearing separately for C75 with some of those matters that haven't been resolved by the amended plans as yet, and we refer that to panel for their consideration.
All right, so my clarification, the original application, now the day one, there's been some concessions there to try and deal with a lot of those concerns.
Yeah, that is right. There has been some modifications made that may have addressed concerns, but some remain not addressed at this point in time.
And we're asking the panel to make recommendations in relation to those matters.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? So just a clarifying question from me, Ms McNamara. We are not today being asked to make any decision in relation to this proposal. It's that the recommendation before us is that we basically take this, usher this through to a planning panel hearing.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. That's correct. The purpose of today is to refer the amended documents to panel, having considered them appropriately.
Thank you. Further questions? If not, we do have that recommendation before us. Is any councillor prepared to move that recommendation? Councillor Mead, seconded. Councillor Purcell, Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, as mentioned, we had this particular amendment has come to us numerous times in workshop and the council meeting. So this is taking it to the next step, and happy to move this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Mead. Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to second this motion. It's another step in the process that we need to take. And as stated earlier, that it will after it goes to the panel, it will come back for us for consideration. So I'm more than happy to second it at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Purcell. Any other councillors wanting to speak for or against? Councillor Purcell.
I'll speak for that because in my own little befuddled, if you're getting confused, etc. I'm just happy that this says that as it's still subject to matters raised being heard by the panel. So going to panel, we're saying to everybody that's concerned, all of those concerns are before them, and will come back to us, and then we'll have to look at it again. So,
listen. And I think I'll just make a comment that I'll support today's recommendation, noting that any new development is an opportunity to think seriously about what kind of community we want to live in, and so I'm glad that we are taking this step, going to panel to get an independent review on that. There are no other councillors wanting to speak for, or councillor Smith.
Oh, sorry, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'll be supporting the motion because I just think it is. This has been around a lot of discussion and within both council and the community, and it's just moving this to the next step and moving it to a final deliberation. So, yeah, I'm going to move supporting the motion, opposite recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Smith. And I'll come back to you as the mover of the motion, councillor Mead.
No, nothing further to add. Thanks, Mayor.
Let's put that to the vote then. All those in favour, please. That is carried 5-0. Thank you. Item 2.8, the Port Fairy Skate and Play Site Rationale Report. I'll ask for our Director of Assets and Community, Ms Edith Farrell.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. So this report in front of you is to present the findings of the consultation that occurred back in July, and provides a detailed analysis of that community feedback and the commentary received, in addition to having undertaken some further technical and engineering assessments for sites that have been now informed the preferred site. The report indicates that we're undertaking assessment on whether we need a cultural heritage management plan, and also environmental flora and fauna ecological report. That report has actually been received since this report has been written. We understand from that report that there are no significant roadblocks with that. There will be some need to undertake vegetation offsets and setbacks and so forth, and that the report is indicating that it's all manageable within the design work that's yet to occur. So the recommendations for the report that is before you is that we indicate the preferred site being the Russell Clark Reserve. That's taken account of the community feedback in terms of the consolidation of what originally went out in the July report, which noted a number of co-located facility options. We're also recommending we go to concept design stage now, and that further work on that is undertaken through a community-based advice.
Thank you, Ms Farrell. An opportunity now for councillors' questions. Councillor Mead.
Thanks, Mayor. Ms Farrell, so what's the plan moving forward with the community advisory group? If somebody out there is interested in getting involved,
yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Mead. So what we're intending is we already had an advisory group of the skate community involved, so that group would continue on. But in addition to that, we'll actually promote the opportunity for a community advisory group for the play component as well. People could obviously be on both, but there were a number of people through that consultation process who indicated interest in, continuing to have input into the project. So we would look to promote that through that existing cohort that is online and consultation sessions.
Councillor Pearson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. That to Ms Farrell, that partially answers my question. It was in regard to the point 3, the approves future concept design consultation. Now, you said that was with the play area, because we don't really want to go and reinvent the whole thing. So is that specifically for the play area?
Through the Mayor. So there had been, as you indicate, Councillor Purcell, previous work done, extensive work done on the design for the skate section. There may be some requirement based on the location to do some modification of that, but that would be worked through with that group as well. But we believe through the topography of that area, it will fit quite well in terms of the existing footprint of that original design, that it will fit quite well, but we'll do any minor modification through that process as well.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Probably not relevant to the officer's recommendation, but just a question. The existing skate park, Ms Farrell, where is that at and what's its future?
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Through the Mayor. So we had previously a lease with the Department of Education for the original site at the school. That was closed some time ago. That lease has come to an end, and we have obligations under the terms of that lease to make good the site. It's been too wet to undertake any of those obligations at this point in time, but we're assessing that at the moment, and we will work on a suitable date to undertake those works over the coming month or so.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Councillor Dukas.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. More of a statement, and I'd like to mention too in my statement the great Councillor Prendergast. Councillor Purcell, remember him
Very well.
This site proposed was the one that he and I proposed some 12 or 15 years ago. So if they only had to listen to us, we would have had this up and built at a far lesser cost. But finally, wiser head has prevailed. So thank you, Councillor.
Great side. Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. In regard to the community-based advisory group, would it be prudent to have a councillor chair that? Councillor Lockett's been very heavily involved in this. Would it be worthwhile having a councillor involved in that community-based group?
Through the Mayor, that's entirely reasonable, so we can approach Councillor Lockett when he's back to see if there's interest.
I don't know what councillors think.
Okay. And if councillors wish, they could always go to the meetings. Sure. And observe.
Yep.
Great.
I think that's a good idea.
No further questions in
Chair,
relation to
Chair.
that? We do have an officer recommendation before us that essentially means we basically adopt the rationale report that is included in our papers today, and we proceed to concept design completion. Seeking a mover, please. Councillor Purcell, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Gleeson. Thank you, Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Wow, it's just been on the books for a while. We've been nearly every part of Port Fairy. We've tried here, we've tried there, we've been close a few times. Hopefully now we've got to a stage where we can get that community group involved and get this project up and going. We had a session at the Port Fairy market where a community could drop in on the weekend, and this was raised a number of times, and most of the comment was get on and do it. So from my point of view, it's get on and do it.
So thank you. Councillor Gleeson.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, I could go on and on and on, but I just think I'll say that Councillor Purcell's just summed it up. We've agreed to it. We've found the site. Let's make it happen.
Thanks, councillor Gleeson. Other councillors who'd like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Mead?
Thanks, Mayor. Speak for the motion. Look forward to keeping on track and making sure that we get regular updates of where we're at and sure timely delivery and on time and on budget. Just to comment that it's always good to give someone a job when they're not here.
No, that's good. And before I put it to the vote, I would also like to acknowledge the very many young people who have bombed our Instagram accounts and asked us to get on with this as well. It was great to have their involvement and their engagement in this process. So your voice was heard, so thank you. So back to you as the mover, Councillor Purcell.
No need, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried 6-0. Thank you, councillors. 2.9, the Port Fairy Community Pool and Fitness Centre upgrade. Ms Farrell, could you please introduce? Oh no, actually you've got a conflict of interest and we'll ask you for me. Thank you. Oh, great. I beg your pardon. Welcome, Jackie. Okay, please go ahead and introduce.
Councillors, this report provides an update regarding the ongoing operations at Port Fairy Community Pool and Fitness Centre. And it's recommending the deferment of the investigation of an appropriate management model pending the outcomes of the current litigation, and that council continue the monthly payments for the public liability insurance commitment of that period. For questions.
Thank you. Councillors, questions? Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Ms. Anderson, when does the current insurance agreement run through to?
So through you, Mayor, the current insurance agreements that we have only been renewed at the moment during this period of time. The full committee themselves, they, as a lease, their lease will conclude the 30th day of November 2025.
So that's, but we have an agreement with our insurance. So does that go through till 2025?
Mr. Davis,
just a clarification,
please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Smith. The resolution of council in April of this year carried with it a condition that council continues to contribute an amount not exceeding $10,000 XST per month for the purposes of meeting their insurance premium obligations until council makes a determination. And that determination is based on the investigation that I was charged with, or the CEO was charged to undertake. The purpose of this report is to then suggest, given that post that announcement there were proceedings lodged in court, and the prevailing view was to hold on any work until those proceedings come to their conclusion.
That answer your question, Councillor Smith? No?
I'm not clear.
Yep.
I'm sure Councillor Smith is, but I'm not. So at that time, we didn't commit to a period of time.
No, through you, Mayor, you committed to paying the obligations until a determination was made as to where to with the pool.
Right.
This was prior to any court proceedings.
Okay.
Since that determination, court proceedings began, and in terms of furthering the investigation works, we didn't do that pending the outcome of the court proceedings. So that's the state of play, and that's why this update report's been brought in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand now. I must admit, I thought we had committed for until April next year, but I understand that's not the case. It's open-ended at the moment. Is that the way?
Through you, Mayor. There's two ways you could look at it. It's either open-ended or it was until 30 September 2023, in which we were meant to have a report back here, but that report's been deferred until such time as court proceedings have occurred. So if council was to be sure around that, they could certainly recommend something today along the lines of putting an end date on that insurance premium.
Mr. Davis, can I ask another question around the court? Do you have any sense of timing or not?
Through you, Mayor, no, other than there is a follow-up in the ensuing months, but that could then require another deferral as the last proceeding occurred that they requested more time. So we're not a party to those proceedings. I need to make that absolutely clear.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Mead.
Yes, just to clarify, Mr. Davis, so is there a policy rollover timeframe for the insurance, and when does that end?
Through you, Mayor, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Anderson, the insurance premium comes up around April every year, and around early March, the aquatic facility are served with what it's going to be for the oncoming year. Then that conversation comes in, as it has done because of the price rise, into the council.
Good questions. Councillor Dukas.
Thank you, Mayor. So the insurance runs to April next year. We pay a monthly premium. If we decide that we've had enough, we don't intend to pay anymore, then that would leave the committee with no option but to find the money themselves or cease operation.
Through you, Mayor, most likely, that's right, Councillor Dukas.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Again, clarification. So back in April, we asked the CEO to investigate a management model. And so just to be clear, the advice received was not to proceed with that. Mr. Davis?
Through you, Mayor, that's correct, Councillor Gleeson, because of the outstanding court proceedings.
So, no, we haven't got to this yet. Well, point 2 on our recommendation before us causes me great concern because it's just too open-ended. And I think that we need to look at our commitment. If we don't clear that up, then are we saying, well, we're going to continue this till the end of the lease? And I think that we need to make a decision as to whether that stays in or stays out, I think.
Okay, so probably a good segue, but we have got an officer recommendation here. Are you proposing that we move an alternate motion, Councillor Gleeson?
I think I am.
And that would be?
To remove item 2.
To remove point 2?
Point 2, sorry.
Yep. Okay, so you're happy to move that motion, the amended motion?
Yes.
Okay, just want to be sure that you're comfortable with that. I will need a seconder for that amended motion.
I'm willing to second it with if it's slightly different.
We need to have a finish tone or something in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I know it's not discussion time. But I from what the CEO says, it sounds like it's maybe it continues, maybe it doesn't. I think it needs to be clarified and have an end date. So if we left 2 in and say until the end of April next year or something.
To the renewal of insurance policy or to renewal of
I'd be much more happy to second it.
Okay, so you're happy
and
with that?
I think so.
Councillor Gleeson, you think so?
No, because we need to have an end date on that.
Okay.
I think our original commitment was that intention.
Yeah.
For the next 12 months to make those payments. So yes, for item 2 to continue the monthly payment until the renewal of or end of policy.
For the sake of clarity, you're now moving an amended motion that keeps point 2, but adds the end date of March or April or
end of current policy.
End of current policy term. Okay, that's your motion. Are you happy to second that, Councillor Purcell?
Very happy.
Okay, so Councillor Gleeson, would you like to speak to that?
Well, obviously we want to try and support the pool, community-based organisation. And we know that there's some, things in place that are outside our control. But we need to ensure that we don't pass on a commitment to a new council. There'll be a new council next year in October or November, whenever it is. I don't think it's good policy for us to have an open-ended payment plan. So all I'm asking is that we make a commitment to see us through to March, April, and then we can redecide. But, it's a tough time for everybody involved. And I think council should commit to supporting them up until the renewal of the next
insurance policy too. Thank you. Councillor Mead,
Can I just have a question for the mover, please?
you may.
Just to clarify, that is to review any ongoing then?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm just asking that we say, yes, we're definitely in until this date, where then council reviews. Absolutely.
Yeah. Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. It's a wonderful community asset. Of all the assets we have, this is one of the ones that the community love more than anything else. From my point of view, we need to do all we can to keep it open. Yes, there are troubling times. Yes, there are issues. There are things that need to be done. From my point of view, we need to do all we can to keep this asset in good condition and also to have it available for the community to use. But we also need to make certain that council aren't committed to an asset that can't run well. And we do need to put a time limit on, and that's why I think it's good to have a date or a time when we'll review what's going on. But as I said, it is a really strong community asset and one that I will definitely support.
Thank you, Councillor Purcell. Other councillors? Councillor Dukas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So if I read it correctly, we go through to the end of policy next year. Part 1 talks about doing nothing until the outcome of the current litigation. So come the end of next year and there's no end in sight of current litigation, what do we do?
So I think
So why wouldn't we take some action now to look at other options? Forget about the litigation, holding up investigation, and where it says defer the investigation, let's say investigate an appropriate management model, irrespective of what the litigation does and says, or whenever it does or does not happen.
So you're foreshadowing an alternate motion if this one is to.
No, I'm asking what the ramifications of this recommendation. The way it reads, nothing's going to happen. We're going to come to the end of March, let's say March next year. We're going to decide, do we keep paying? Because litigation hasn't been determined, there's been no outcome. So then we throw in another 100 odd grand. Because that's all we're going to determine next year. Because we haven't made a decision on the management.
Okay.
And I can't support that. I think we need to get off our backsides and look at other options.
Thanks, Councillor Dukas. Other councillors? To speak for or against?
Or just, sorry.
As the movement, do you want to?
I just want to make it, I don't know. We asked Mr. Davis earlier as to the reason we hadn't moved on with the report, and the answer was that we've got another outstanding model. So how do we go about that? Anyway.
So to answer Councillor Gleeson, part 1, we could just drop off the deferred and just go with investigate an appropriate management model. Forget about the current litigation. At least when we get to next year, we'll have something to look at.
maybe we could ask the CEO, because that was our motion 3 or 4 months ago. So maybe we could put that to the CEO and explain to us what hasn't been done, and we're now looking at this.
Mr. Davis, you happy to step us through how we landed here today?
Through you, Mayor, it's detailed in the report that previous advice had recommended pausing until the court proceedings
finalised to provide the sufficient line of sight as to where to from here. Because there are things that need to occur through the court system that may or may not decide a certain course of action for the council to then assist with, be it a skills-based board, be it an alternative management model, to which I would say we have done that investigation already, as you'd be aware of. We have alternative management models there. This was more around the board makeup situation.
Councillor Purcell.
Very clear. It's not a part of the motion, but if the case gets resolved earlier, we should start the process as soon as the case gets resolved.
Through you, Mayor, absolutely. That's implied, Councillor Purcell, with that, that recommendation number one. It's pending the outcome of current litigation. True. So we'd get straight onto it. Thank you.
And so we have moved and seconded this motion. So if there's no one else wanting to speak for or against, I'll come back to the mover, Councillor Gleeson, to sum up, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Look, I just reiterate Councillor Purcell's comments about the, the community asset and the importance of it. If we can still provide some comfort to them, some support to them, because it's a tough time for all involved, then I think we should do that. And we've given ourselves now a time where we reevaluate. And I do agree with the other comments that once the decision's made, let's just go straight away and act straight away. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gleeson. We'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour, please. That is carried 6-0. Thank you. Item 3.1, Mayor and Councillors' reports. You have those before you. I'll just invite any comments or questions in relation to those reports. We will go to 3.2. So I know this is a motion, there are none. 3.3 is general matters. So do we have any items of general interest? Councillor Gleeson.
If I may, Mayor, just a big shout out last Friday night at we were at the I invited to or attended the Farmers' Night Out, and it's an initiative of Jane and Michaela and Mitchell, who are going through their leadership Great South Coast program is the word I'm looking for. And what a fantastic night it was, and what an emotional night it was too, with some speakers there, and both told their stories. And one had a child take their life, the other one survived because they got proper. But I just want to congratulate the three of them, and for helping us to do our job too, to bring community together. It was a wonderful night and a great initiative, and I congratulate the three of them involved in it. It was terrific, with over 100 guests. Sensational.
Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Look, while on a note about events, it was the Moyne Cup Bowls on Sunday, which you presented the trophy very well to the winners. But it was actually good to get all of the bowlers from Moyne, from Mortlake, from Port Fairy, Carp and Koroit together. There were big numbers there, well represented from each of the groups, and it was really good to see people take it off, and it was a great day, and I think everyone enjoyed it. So it was something that I'm not sure whose initiative it was, but certainly well done.
Those moments where you didn't mind who won, everyone was in the win. So
Well, you should do.
any other items of general matters? There being none. Item 3.4, do we have any urgent business for this meeting? No. Item 4, CEO meeting schedule. Mr. Davis, you want to draw our attention to.
Thank you, Mayor. Just commend the report to you. A couple of takeouts from the meeting schedule. The Southwest Victorian Alliance had its strategic planning day, of which we were in attendance on as well, working on how we as a collective of councils can better partner with Victorian government as we move forward, now in a period of leadership transition, as we hear today, with the Premier resigning. It's very important for the 7 councils within that group to have some alignment and some shared issues to take into Spring Street. So look forward to seeing the outcomes of that workshop. And we can bring that back into the council as well. And the second one was, I was fortunate enough to take some of the councillors along to a tour of the Nagambie Waterways development, an example of some modular building that's occurred. Certainly with the announcements of the housing strategy last week, more and more so, we will be looking forward to receiving granny flats and other type modular housing opportunities as the government has seemingly streamlined some of the red tape in order to help that. And that would greatly assist some of our communities in attracting key workers across our main townships in particular.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Questions? Councillor Smith.
Thanks, Chair. Just a question, Mr. Davis. 23rd of August, meeting with our local upper house member, Ms. Emma Cora. Was there anything substantial came out of that we could look forward to with the abandonment of the Commonwealth Games?
Through you, Mayor. I would hope so, Councillor Smith, particularly with regards to the opening up of funding with regards to housing and key worker housing. We are awaiting the guidelines to actually be released so we can then make application to those funds. On the surface, it appears that we are better placed to have a go at those funds as we would have been if the Commonwealth Games was to continue. The other follow-up from that is I'm pleased to say that the council as a whole will be meeting with Jacinta in the coming months as well to get a greater handle on some of the more specific issues that we have. And the Commonwealth Games funding is currently out there there's an inquiry going on and we'll be making a submission to that as well. Thank you.
Any other questions for the activities and meeting report?
We moved into the activities.
Yes, go ahead. Yep. Go ahead, Councillor Gleeson.
Your first report about the storm event, Brett, Mr. Davis. Just a couple of comments on there, but I'd like you to have a say too. But I just want to. It was one of those unusual events where I got a phone call in Bendigo to say that half our trees had fallen over the neighbour's fence, etc., etc. And that was just at my place. So across the morning, I can only imagine that was pretty significant. So I just want to just congratulate you, firstly, your emergency management team, and again the staff for the response, because we know that across Portland, Waterford, 600 call-outs for the SES. And so I can only imagine how busy it was at the office, but congratulations to you and your team and our staff.
Thank you, Councillor Gleeson. Absolutely, the team were on the front line straight away, and the lines of communication as it was. There were a few of us in various parts of the state that morning, but it didn't stop the coordination or the efforts of our teams who have been out there, and a lot of people came in on their rostered days off to actually get on with the cleanup on that Friday, and as well as across the weekend. And councillors also responded in kind with regards to the free green waste initiative to help with some of that cleanup where we haven't been able to get to everything. But I do thank you for raising that. It's a great example of how the team comes together in a crisis without fear nor favour.
Councillor Dukas.
Yes, thank you. To the CEO, Arts and Culture Strategy. Now, future tense have been appointed to do the strategy. At the next workshop, can we get an update on what they intend to do and the way forward?
For you, Mayor? Absolutely. Thank you. It's a timely announcement has been budgeted for, but we're keen to ratify where we are in an arts and culture sense. So we will bring that to you.
Terrific.
Yeah, Mr. Davis, on page 227 there, we have strategic planning here. Given we know that there's a great demand for people to move to the Great Shire of Moy to set up, but also the key worker housing affordability, etc. Over the years, council have been working hard to put forward several planning scheme amendments that would help address some of those concerns and open up some more land for growth. Where are we at with C69, C70 and Detroit structure, for example?
Through you, Mayor. Thank you for your question, councillor Need. Both amendments C69 and C70, which council approved and sent off to the minister in February and March this year, they could take care of approximately 800 houses if they were fully developed across the Shire through our rural housing strategy and a Port Fairy coastal and structure plan. It is frustrating, to say the least, that we have reached out to the department on several occasions to see where that's at. They've been through a system, they've gone through a panel, they've come back to the council, they're there. And we're having housing statements announced. We were probably hoping with bated breath when that announcement came out that we might have had a couple of announcements that lined up with that, and we'll certainly be following that up with the planning minister in short time as to how much longer we intend to wait. The MAV recently conducted a survey across all the councils, and 2/3 of the council surveyed said that they've had at least one amendment with the minister for over 12 months. So we understand there's a backlog. We think there's some quick fixes there with our housing amendments. So we will be advocating strongly for resolution of that sooner rather than later.
Thank you.
Councillor Priestley.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just the work that was done over the storm event was great. We congratulate the whole team on that. It looks like we're going to be in for a very tough fire season. Are we doing anything in regard to preparation from that? Assisting the CFA, or is there any sort of pre-event work that's being done at the moment, or will be done?
Through you, Mayor. Great question, councillor Purcell. So there has been emergency management sort of refresher training of core members of the team that will be called upon. We're doing some works at the moment too to ensure that we have an incident control centre ready to go. There have been ongoing discussions with the CFA and our emergency management team. That's probably as much detail as I can give you at this stage, but happily bring something further back to you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? Councillor
Yes,
Dukas.
thank you. Under the contracts report, on page 219, about contamination environmental assessment. Can you tell me what we were going to test for contamination? Or is that the one for the Koroit West planning area?
Through you, Mayor, I'll have to take that on notice. Yes,
Okay, take that one on notice for us.
The old SES.
Yeah. Oh, SES, you think?
Just to continue on that, look,
That's all
the
right.
number
Take
of
it on
work that
notice.
we do, bias and contamination reports as part of our due diligence. So I wouldn't want to just specifically say it's that one. It could be a couple of sites, but we'll bring that back to you.
No problem. Thank you.
Final questions for the CEO in relation to activities reports? No? Oh,
Yes,
Councillor Dukas?
yeah, more on planning, the Koroit structure plan. When are we going to hear from someone that's doing that?
Ms. McNamara?
And Councillor Dukas, we are awaiting authorisation from the department on that amendment, and it will be placed on public exhibition. There have been some moments of consultation with landowners so far in relation to drafting a development plan, but it will be placed on exhibition as soon as possible.
So when are we going to get someone to come to us with a report? Because normally this will go hand in hand with shop. We would be informed on a regular basis how it's progressing.
Mr. Davis?
Through you, Mayor. Councillors, this refers to the structure plan that council approved, I think in 2020, that had gone through that process. It's just been the time taken to get it to this point. Ms. McNamara and the team will bring an update back into a workshop for you, but there's no material change to what was consulted on and approved then. It's just putting it through the system now, as we had to get C69, C70 and C75 out of the way first.
That might be the issue. There's no significant change. Okay, it'll come to us shortly.
Anything further, councillor Dukas?
No, thank you. I'm right, yeah, just don't close down in a hurry.
That brings us to the end of our open meeting. I'll call for a motion to close the open meeting so that we can consider the confidential agenda this afternoon. Moved councillor Mead, seconded councillor Purcell. All those in favour? Thank you, that is carried, and thanks to those who have joined us online today and in the gallery.
Leave for all of us.
Thank you.
Couldn't see.
Do you want a 2-minute break or? Yeah.
We'll do it. Take 2 minutes.